All right. Hey there, everybody. Welcome to part two of the Surprise, You're a Cataloger web series, which, surprise, we have a part two. There were definitely some people in the comments of the last one talking about a part two, and part one got a lot of good reception. So, first off, thank you for that. Second off, because of that, it's time for part two. So again, this is a part two. This presentation assumes that you already know the basics of cataloging, what a field is, what a mark number is, how to read a catalog entry, how to copy catalog, etc. If you want a refresher, MLC's YouTube page has a webinar titled Surprise, You're a Cataloger that goes over all of that. This is, again, it's part two, so it focuses a bit more on advanced tips and tricks aside from just the basic, here's how you read a catalog entry. So, hello, it's me again. My name is Katie Gill. I am the current cataloging librarian at the Mississippi Library Commission. At my time at MLC, I've cataloged books and movies, but also inflatable costumes, board games, foam dinosaur pieces, even more board games, little 3D kits, assistive devices, in-house kits, ad hoc sewing kits. I've cataloged a sewing machine and whatever weird items the rest of library services likes to throw at me. So congratulations, you know how to copy catalog. And if you don't know how to copy catalog, go back to the first Surprise Your Catalog video and then watch it so that you know how to copy catalog, because this talk assumes that you know how to copy catalog. So now what? Good news. If you're cataloging a weird item that's not your standard book, it might be in WorldCat already. So WorldCat is a repository of all sorts of different library catalogs. So naturally, because of that, it has repositories of all sorts of different items that might be in library catalogs. If you're making an in-house kit, then this doesn't apply, but if you're cataloging a film, board games, computer softwares, previously created kits, and by that I mean like kits that were assembled by a manufacturer, like a Lego set or a Makey Make set or something like that. These are items that libraries might already have, so therefore they might already have a catalog entry in WorldCat. If that's the case, you can just copy catalog the entry. Board games are really good with this. There are a lot of board games in WorldCat, as well as films and computer software. So, what about the weird stuff? Because libraries just aren't books or movies. As the role of libraries expand, so do the items they keep in their collection. And these are three examples of items that we have at MLC that are the weird stuff. On the left, we have a circuit kit where users can help kind of create their own circuits and learn how electricity works and things like that. In the center, we have a humongous Connect 4 game. It is a giant game of Connect 4. And on the right, we have an inflatable costume of a gingerbread man. Because of MLC's position as a state library, public libraries in the state can check out these items. And because of that, they have to be in our catalog. If you're a public librarian, you probably also have some weird non-standard items in your catalog that aren't just books or movies, but that the public can still check out. More and more libraries are growing, like tool libraries, for example, where patrons can check out kitchen utensils, power tools, shovels, things like that. You're going to have to catalog them, and they're going to have to be in your system. So with this presentation, we're going to be talking about three different problem children, so to speak. Three different scenarios where you have an item that's not in WorldCat that you're going to have to create an original catalog entry for, and we're going to be exploring how you create those catalog entries to begin with. So these are things like kits assembled in-house, objects that were donated, like binders of materials, things like that, where you want patrons to be able to check them out, but they might not have been mass produced, like your board games, your 3D kits, your art supplies, those sort of things are. So for problem number one, These are items that heavily involve another pre-existing item, like book club kits, dinner and a movie kits, sensory storytime kits, kits where if you can check out a book, you get a stuffed animal attached with it. Obviously, a lot of these are kits. So with that, you just steal that data. Just steal it. Steal that data. If your new item heavily ties into a pre-existing item, congratulations. You've got data you can reuse. So for this presentation, I'm going to be talking a lot about how you do things in OCLC Connection Client, which is the cataloging program that we use. But if your cataloging program has access to WorldCat and to these like wide world of catalog entries, you should be able to do this as well. The steps might just be a little bit different. So what you'll want to do if you are making a catalog entry for an item that heavily borrows off of a pre-existing item is you're going to want to derive a new catalog entry. And that basically copies all the data from that first catalog entry and then shoves it over to a brand new catalog entry. That way, we do this with our book club kits at MLC because that way the book club kit and a book itself that's part of the book club kit are two separate entries, because otherwise Verso occasionally will smush them together as one giant entry because they share the same ISBN. So for deriving new entries in connection clients, you go to edit and then derive and then new WorldCat entry. Here's an example of how this is put in practice. So as I mentioned at MLC, we have book club kits. These are kits that public libraries can check out that contain 10 copies of a book as well as some discussion questions. Obviously, 10 copies of a book, this is going to be different from just a regular random solitary book in our main collection, so they have to have their own entry. But as you can see on the example entry, a lot of the things are the same. The only bits that were changed for the book club kit entry are the bits that I've highlighted. And so you can see the title as well as the related titles. It's a book club in a box for Florence Adler Swims Forever. And we put the related titles in there so that if you still look up full text Florence Adler Swims Forever, you would be able to find this as well as the original text. As you can see with the 500, the 505, and the 856 fields, those are all fields that we have added because they have data that is unique to the book club kit itself. Contact information, a URL to the web page, how many books are in the kit, etc. If you go up to the top left corner, you'll see that mixed materials is highlighted. We're going to talk a bit more about that later. Put a little pin in it, but the long and short of it is that because this is a kit, this is not just a solitary book, you'll need to change that little drop-down menu as well. But everything else, all the subject fields, all the publication and data, the author, all of that, the way too long blurb about the book itself, it's all the same. It's so much easier to derive a new record and just change what needs to be changed instead of typing everything out yourself. And I am a big proponent of work smarter, not harder. So problem number 2, these are self-published books, binders of materials collected in-house, books from a small publisher, old land records and genealogies. Your library probably has one of these somewhere around here. Like if you're a public library, you might have some old genealogies from a patron that donated their collection to the library. If you're an academic library, you might have a collection of papers from some dead faculty member who willed their papers to the library. You might have a self-published book from an author that gave a talk at your library, so you put a copy of their book in your collection. These are items that don't have ties to a pre-existing item, items where you can't derive a new record from it, where you can't steal that data and you're going to have to create a lot of data of your own. So you can start from scratch. You can create a whole new catalog entry or work from there, or you could still kind of derive the new data, but use it as a template. Because again, when you derive a new WorldCat entry, it basically copies all of the data and puts it into a new blank sheet, not tied to anything, not blank new, bright white piece of paper, nice and bright and new. So this is something that I would do if you're new to this, or if the idea of original cataloging scares you, then derive a WorldCat new entry from any book, from a book that you already have in your library, a book that you know kind of relates to what you want to catalog. Derive that new entry and then use that entry as just sort of a template for how it's going to look. Because with that catalog entry, it's data that is already good, it's already there, it's already workable. If original cataloging scares you, then having all of that already good, already done properly, already works perfectly fine data, you can use that as sort of as a template, as a way to color in the lines. You just make sure that you change everything before you actually upload it to your server. But yeah, original cataloging is scary. It's very scary. So if you want to do training wheels for a little bit, there is no shame in that. So at the start, just focus on the basics. If you're doing original cataloging, just focus on the basics. You can always add in more information later. At the start, you want to get enough information in that if someone is looking for the book on the shelves or just wants a vague idea about what this item is, that they'll be able to get that vague idea. You don't need that 5 paragraph description of what's in the book or a detailed list of every letter that is in this box of letters. You just need enough basic information that people can find it. And so here are the things that I like to start on, that I like to focus on for the basics: the title, the author, the publication data, the physical data, the summary, and the subject headings. So for the title and the author, copy these directly from the cover of whatever item you've got. The publication data is where was it published, what year, that's how old is it. That can be useful if you have really vaguely named items. If someone is looking for the box of papers from SpongeBob SquarePants from 1950, and you also have a box of papers from SpongeBob SquarePants from 1980, then the publication data, that's where it really comes into play. Physical data is used for just the item itself. How many pages? How big is the book? If you're scrolling through the catalog or looking on the shelves for this book with the world's most generic title, if it's 50 pages, then you'll obviously know not to look at the 500-page books. For the summary, you can copy a pre-existing blurb or write one of your own. This is really good for self-published books, because self-published books, or books that are published through a small press, those are more likely going to have a website than not. You can copy the summary data directly from the website because, again, work smarter, not harder. Subject headings they basically tell you a vague idea about what is in the text itself, what is in the item. You can probably glean 1 or 2 subject headings from the blurb or from just the information on the back of the book or the sheet of paper that comes with your box of letters telling you what it is. We'll talk a bit more about subject headings later, but you only need 1 or 2 at the start of it. And you don't read whatever you're cataloging. Just read enough, learn enough that you can go, okay, this is probably a book about manatees. I should put in the subject heading manatees. Or, okay, this is a biography from an author who worked in the civil rights movement in Alabama. I can put in biographies. I can put in civil rights movement, Alabama. I can just put in civil rights movement or just Alabama. You need to get enough subject headings, again, that people have a vague idea about whatever your cataloging is. Catalog directly what you see on the book. This is a biggie. Is there a typo? Put it in the entry. Are some of the pages unnumbered? Note that they're numbered, then put it in the entry. Do some of the documents have coffee stains on them? Put that in the entry. Did the book get published in a place that doesn't exist anymore? Put it in the entry. These sort of details might seem small and nitpicky, but again, you catalog directly from what you see on the book. Even if your book has a little typo on it, like easy fridge, step by step, achieve grammar of mastery, then just catalog what you see on the book. Because again, if people are going through your library or going through your stacks looking for the book, they'll be looking they'll be matching the catalog entry with what the book actually says, what your item actually says. And so if you catalog something and change up the title a bit in the catalog entry from what it is on the book, like, oh, this book uses incorrect grammar, we'll just change the title in the catalog entry, or oh, this author has a typo, we'll just change it in the catalog entry, then that's not good. Don't do that. Obviously, there are some situations where you might want to catalog something else. Like, for example, if you know this author changed their name, then, oh, but what if I want to put the author's new name in there? You can't put the author's new name in there in the catalog entry, but also make sure that if if you do that, make sure that there's a note that people will know where it is. Again, you want to make things nice and easy for people who are just going through your stacks, looking at what they see, and figuring out where everything is. So we're cataloging an original book. Here is an example of an original book. I made this book in Canva. So this book, this completely fake, absolutely original book, is titled Fozzie's Book of Unbearable Jokes by Fozzie Bear. We have some publication data on the side because I was not going to mock up an entire publication data sheet in Canva. We're just mocking up the front and the back cover. So this book was published by Muppet Labs Publishing in 2010, which is located in Hollywood, California. It has 300 numbered pages. It's 15 by 22 centimeters. And flipping through the book shows that there are some color photos included with the text. Obviously, you don't need to read the entire book that you're cataloging, but just flipping through it is good because, again, if the book has colored photos, if the book has illustrations, if your binder full of papers has a paper that has like a giant coffee stain in the middle of it, these are things that you will want to know and notate in the catalog entry. So on the back of this book, we've got a blurb as well as a couple of pull quotes. So here's what the catalog entry might look like. Is it basic? Yes. Could it use more information? Absolutely. This is the bare bones, most skeleton of a catalog entry. But it provides enough information about the book that someone who hasn't read the book before would at least have a vague idea of what it's about. And if they're going to pull this book from the shelves, they at least would know what to look for when they go to pull the book. So congratulations, you've made a bare bones original catalog entry. And so obviously the next step is, how did we make this catalog entry? Because you probably have a few questions, because we jumped straight from here's what the book looks like to here's a full-fledged catalog entry. So let's answer those questions about how we got from point A to point B. Okay. Where did you get the subject access terms? So subject access terms are the 600 fields, and they are all based on subject access, aka what's the book about? So one of the more widely used set of subject terms is the Library of Congress subject headings. If you are cataloging a fiction book, a board game, anything that is used for the general public, the Library of Congress subject headings are the subject headings that you will want to use. There are different subject headings for different types of libraries. For example, if you work in a medical library, then there's a specific set of medical library subject headings whose name I don't remember off the top of my head, but you'll probably want to use more than Library of Congress because it's more niche, it's more focused on specific things that a medical library would use compared to a general library as a whole. So for this, we're mostly focusing on Library of Congress subject headings because I am assuming that that is what most of the audience for this webinar would like to use. If you are the sort of person who would use medical dictionary subject headings, then email me because I want to pick your brain about those. They're kind of weird. I like them. So with the Library of Congress subject headings, you can search for them on the Library of Congress's website. So here are some screen caps of the Library of Congress's website and how to search for subject headings. So for this, we're searching for the subject heading eclipses because we have a fake book about solar eclipses. And so if you go to browse subjects containing eclipses at catalog.loc.gov, then if you look over to the right, it pulls up 247 subject headings that all contain eclipses. The top one is usually their best bet with the most occurrences. For example, you can see eclipses 109, and then narrower terms, which are lunar eclipses, solar eclipses, Saros cycle. If you scroll down, I didn't show this, but if you scroll down, you can see subjects containing eclipses. Eclipse, Twilight Saga, because there's a book in the Twilight Saga called Eclipse that only has like 3 usages. So you'll also want to pay attention to the highlights that I have highlighted. They're not highlighted on the website, obviously. I just highlight them because I want y'all to pay attention to them, because you see the narrower terms, solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, and then you also see on the right the different types of subject headings. So, for example, there's the Library of Congress subject headings, but there's also ELSI annotated children's catalog subject headings. So those are a bit more simple, a bit more basic. If you work at a school library like K through 6, you might want to use those subject headings. As you can see, there are more subject headings, like the Sears list of subject headings. Repertoire de Vitesse Matière, apologies for that horrific French, but the 247 titles and subject headings are eclipses, all the variants of it, as well as all the variants of it in the different subject headings located by the Library of Congress. You'll want to focus on Library of Congress subject headings because that is going to be the instance that occurs the most, and so therefore you have the most data on. If you get too many results, use what you already have. If you going all the way back to Fozzie Bear's Book of Jokes, in the catalog entry, I use the subject heading American humor. So I know that this is a book about jokes. This is a book about humor. Let me search humor in the Library of Congress subject headings so that I can see what I get. Oh no, I get more than 10,000 results. That is terrifying. So this is where your own catalog can come into play. Because if you have a book that you've copy cataloged, that'll have subject headings in there already. Going back to Florence Adler Swims Forever, that had like 12 subject headings in it. And all of those subject headings were valid subject headings from the Library of Congress put in by the publisher, by other libraries, etc. So for this example, I went to our catalog and I typed in humor, I typed in jokes, just to see what sort of books we had in our library that dealt with humor or with jokes. And okay, we've got Russell Baker's Book of American Humor, subject American Wit and Humor. All right, that's a valid subject heading. That works. I can use that in my catalog entry. And also, copying it from what you already have, at least with our library with Verso, if you click through on subject American Wit and Humor, it can pull up all of the books that have that subject heading. So if we clicked through you would see Russell Baker's Book of American Humor as well as Fozzie Bear's Book of Jokes. The catalog is a massive database of everything that works together, everything that you have in your library. You want to make it so that you're able to find things, but also so that connections can help being made. That's what the subject headings are for. They are really good at making the connections so that when you get this 10-year-old patron who's obsessed with dolphins, if you type in search dolphins, find a book, you see one of the subject headings is dolphins, or you see one of the subject headings is marine biology, click through it and it'll pull up all of the books you have about dolphins, all of the books you have about marine biology, and you're going to make that 10-year-old's day. So, what's up with the fixed fields? Going back to Fozzie Bear's Book of Jokes, and also going back to any OCLC catalog entry screen cap that I've shown, there's this little bar at the top of the catalog entry that are the fixed fields. These are automatically created when you create a new catalog entry. Some of these are about the catalog entry, some of them are about the item being cataloged. The fixed fields are all letters instead of numbers, and they vary based on what you're cataloging. So for example, here's what the fixed fields look like when you create a new record for a book in OCLC Connection Client. It automatically populates the fixed fields, and it automatically populates some with what it thinks that an answer would be, what it thinks that you would want to do. But also, if you see those little black squares, it auto populates it with ones where it's like, hey, you should fill this out yourself. So let's decode a few of these. A quick look at fixed fields. Lang, lang, that's the language of the item. What is this written in? Is this book in English? Is this box of papers in French? CTRY is the physical location associated with the item. Usually this is where the item was published. For example, a book published by University Press of Texas would get a country code for Texas. Each country code is 3 letters. There is a list. There's a list out there. You don't have to memorize this. There's a list. If you go to the OCLC bibliographics website, they've got a list on there. And I'll make sure that we put a link to the country code specifically, as well as to just that website in general in the description of this video and whatever email blast goes out about this video. So DESC is what language are you using to catalog? Are you using AACR2, which is a cataloging language that nobody really uses anymore? Are you using a current cataloging language? Are you not so sure if you're using a cataloging language or not? Like you might have a couple of mistakes in there, so you're just doing something in-house. DTST is the range of dates associated with the item. Is it a reprint? Is it a serial that covers over 10 years? Is it a movie that was filmed at one time but has a distribution date of another time? Dates are the actual dates associated with the item. When was it published? When was it released? So on and so on. The encoding level, how complete is the catalog entry? We're going to talk a bit more about that one later because that one's a little weird. Again, if you forget what a fixed field means, that's okay. The OCLC bibliographic formats and standards website has a list of the fixed fields. It has a list of the country codes. It has a list of the language codes. This is your best friend. This is my best friend. I love the OCLC bibliographic formats and standards website. I go on there whenever I'm doing original cataloging and I don't remember how to catalog something. It is my best friend. I use it a lot. You should use it a lot too. It is going to be your best friend as well. The URL is at the bottom of the slide, but again, will be put in the video description as well, because it can be kind of hard to click through a video. So let's go back to our fake book entry. It's time to explain why I chose the fixed fields that I did. So language, ENG, the book is primarily in English. CTRY, CAU is the code for California, where Muppet Labs publishing or whatever I called it is located. And that's the primary location associated with the book. DTST, S, because there's only a single date associated with this book. And dates, the only date associated with it is 2010. So I left the description blank because parts of this record don't follow the International Standard Bibliographic Description cataloging. But to be honest, I'm pretty sure that most of the record does. I left it blank just in case I make a punctuation mistake. The encoding level is blank because this is the most complete MARC record created from an inspection of the material. I had the book on hand. I looked at the book myself. If you're cataloging something based off of a card in your collection or an email sent by the publisher data, then you would do a different encoding level. But because I had the item in hand, because I was looking over our fake book, I left the encoding level blank because it is the most complete. We had all the data on hand. We were able to catalog this item from what we had. And remember, you can always add in more details later. You could add in things like reviews, like a more robust summary, like your AR level. Perfect is the enemy of good. Get that catalog entry up first and then add in more details. Problem number 3, a non-book item, an inflatable suit, a sewing machine, a set of blocks, a Santa outfit, and Etch-a-Sketch. Good news! Congrats! You're doing a lot of the same things you do in your cataloging books. You can catalog the item based on what you see in front of you. If you can reuse data from an already existing MARC entry, do so. If you go into connection client and type in sewing machine, enter, you might not find like your locally produced, I don't know, hometown branded sewing machine, but you can probably find a brother sewing machine that you could steal a lot of that data from. And again, some of your non-book items might already have catalog entries, board games, DVDs, children's toys, etc. But so for this, we've got this item that we don't have a lot of information on. The paperwork is missing. There's no case. It was handmade. There's something about this item that we have on hand that just doesn't give you a lot of information. You can still do a pretty good catalog entry based on that. The most important thing and the first thing to note for non-book items is the type field. I am not going to go over these individually. There are a lot. There are more indicators in the type field than what I have listed right here. But your type determines how you're going to catalog the entry. It determines what fields you can use, what fixed fields you can use. For example, there are some where your computer file might not have the same data or the same information that like a book made out of a dead tree would have. You need to note your type. You need to make sure that you get the type correctly. And again, this is just a brief example of the types. There's a more robust list on the OCLC website. Types are dependent on the format of an item. This goes back to that drop-down menu. Remember back in Florence Adler Swims Forever, where I highlighted the drop-down menu where it was mixed materials? The field in yellow is the format. The field in pink is the type. So for this example, our format is visual materials, which only gives us a list of types to work from. And form is something different. The form field is the form of a text, like if it's Braille or microfilm. I don't know why OCLC uses form and format. I don't like it. It didn't make the rules. It's annoying. But if for your non-book item, you're probably not going to worry that much about form. Each type has a different fixed field it can or can't use. If you're getting an error message and you've got no idea why, it might be because you're using a code in a fixed field that your specific type can't use. For example, the fixed field TMAT is type of visual material. It only applies to visual media. Your book is not a visual material. Your like Nito song is not a visual material. So if your type code isn't G, K, O, or R, you won't need to fill in that field, and you'll get an error message if that field is filled in and you're cataloging something that does not belong to that type. So we're going to put all this in action and catalog a cool rock. This is our cool rock. Here are the sort of questions you should ask about the item. Does it already have an associated title in the collection? Like it might, if it's a box that you've had in your collection for ages and you're just now cataloging, people in the library might already call it like, oh, that's Jeff's box, or oh, that's the Lawyerton Estate box, or something like that. Does it already have an associated title that everybody calls it that you can put in the catalog? How big is the rock? What kind of rock is it? Was the rock a gift? Is there any accompanying material that comes with the rock? Are there any other information about the rock that patrons should know or would make it easier to search for the rock in the catalog? So here are the answers for our questions that we've got. People call it the large purple rock. It's a foot wide. It's amethyst. It was a gift from Dr. Rocky McRockface. It comes with a certificate of authenticity from the Cool Rock Club, and the certificate is dated 1950. Children are not allowed to use the rock because they keep hitting each other with it. So this is all information that would go in the catalog entry for our cool rock. There is probably more information. Again, you've got this item at your library that you haven't cataloged, but it's been there for a while. So it's picked up information like the coffee stain on the middle of the box of letters, or the fact that this author collection was donated when the author died, or that you need to wear gloves when handling this because this book is literally falling apart. All of that is information that should go in the catalog entry as well. So with our cool rock, what fields do we know already? We know the format. The rock is a visual material. which 3D objects count as visual materials. With the type, it would be R, which is a naturally reoccurring object. The R technically stands for realia, which is basically rocks, sewing machines, big old three-dimensional items that don't really fit in with other items, other things, other visual media, but the visual appeal is still a lot of it because that was a cool rock. Most people are going to be looking at the cool rock. DTST, there's a single date associated with that item, and that date is 1950, the date of the certificate. The encoding level is blank because we are looking at the actual rock itself. We are going to be cataloging from the actual rock itself. The description, I'm going to use the I indicator, and because I'm going to try and catalog this rock to ISBD standards. And for the type of material, R, realia, it's a rock. The OCLC website even says that rocks are cataloged with this designation, which I am very charmed by because they got an email from some librarian somewhere going, hi, where do I put my rock? So what other fields do we know already? We know the 245 field, that's the title, that's large purple rock. That's what everybody calls it. The 300 field is dimensions. This is one solitary rock, and it is 1 foot wide. The 500 field is used for general notes. This rock was a gift, and it comes with a certificate. The 506 field is used for item restrictions. Kids cannot check out the rock. That's where that information would go. So what other fields can we look up? We can look up the CTRY fixed field. Is there an associated country or location with the rock? Where was the Cool Rock Club founded? Because we have this information about the Cool Rock Club, which is associated with our rock. That would be a good thing to put in for the country code. A quick Google says that the completely non-existent Cool Rock Club is based in London, England. So thanks, fake Google. 650 are the subject fields. What subject fields are associated with the rock? Doing a Google, doing a search at the Library of Congress subject heading website, you can see that amethysts is a Library of Congress subject heading, as well as precious stones and birthstones. Those are all useful things that we can put in the catalog entry for the rock itself, as well as language. What language are we going to use for the catalog entry? We're using English. I don't speak any other languages. So here's what the catalog entry might look like. Hey, wait a minute. That tech field is filled out, but we didn't talk about that one. At least with Connection Client, it auto-generates some fields when creating a new catalog entry. The 40 field is one of those. And the 40 field basically is, where was this catalog entry created? MPC is the Mississippi Library Commission's code. So that tells us that it was created by the Mississippi Library Commission, and it was created in English. Also, fun fact, there are a few cataloging mistakes in this entry, one of which we literally just talked about. Pause the video right here if you want to think about what some of the mistakes might be. Just pause it right here. All right, now we're going to unpause it because, whoops, here are the mistakes. This is why it's always important to validate your work. It's validate in Connection Client. Other catalog programs have different terms for it, but validating is basically doing a once over and making sure that everything fits right. If you're creating a catalog entry from scratch, it's easy to make a mistake. And the sooner the program can catch your mistakes, the better. Case in point, I forgot to change the type from what Connection automatically generated it as, and I messed up some indicators. Because as you can see, the type of material is R for realia, which does not fit with the type for G. And so then this is better. I changed everything. I swapped things around. I swapped the indicators for my 650 fields. I changed our type back to R. And if you can look down at the bottom with the lovely pink highlighted part, you'll see that little C. That means that our validation is good. That means that this catalog entry does not have any problems. We have created a basic entry for a non-standard item. Round of applause. Good job, team. So what should the call number for my rock be? Whatever you want. As long as it is consistent with whatever's in your system and easy to find or understand, Make that call number be whatever you want. At MLC, we like to use prefixes for non-standard items. The majority of our collection is Dewey Decimal based, but some of the items, like for example, if you have a Dewey Decimal thing for a bunch of rocks, then they all might kind of have the same code, so it might be useless. So, for example, at MLC, we like to use prefixes. We use SW for story walks, BC for book club kits, BG for board games. So, for example, a book club kit for Florence Adler Swims Forever, the call number might be BC, whatever the author's last name is, because I don't remember that off the top of my head. Obviously, there is more to unconventional cataloging than just this presentation. You are going to get some item that you're going to look at it and you're going to go, I don't even know where to start. So hopefully this presentation has helped get you started, or at least quelled the fear that inevitably springs up when your youth services director makes you catalog a giant stuffed dinosaur, or your reference director decides to come into your office and give you like a literal box of embroidery materials. Thanks for that, Alex. If your brain is already fried by codes and letters and numbers, take a nap, curl up into a little cat ball, and then rewatch the video. So, hey, thanks for attending the presentation. Thanks for watching. Email me at kgill@mlc.lib.ms.us if you have any questions, because cataloging is weird and wonderful and a lot of numbers and fries your brain. And I know that there are points in this presentation where I could have explained things better. So feel free to bug me and bug my email and just spam my inbox as long as it's cataloging related. If it's other related, I don't want your Bed Bath & Beyond coupons. Just spam me with cataloging related questions. And have fun cataloging all of your strange and unconventional items. That's the part of cataloging that everybody overlooks. The fact that you're handed this weird, bonkers item and told, all right, it is your job to take this item, this box of embroidery materials, this cool rock, this self published book. It is your job to take this item and sort of dissect it in a way where people will be able to find it, where you can create just a rap sheet about what this item is, where it lives, what is it made of, how people can find it. It's really cool and a completely underrated part of cataloging, and one that even if you're wanting to tear your hair out because you don't know what subject headings fit for a giant Connect 4 game, that you have fun with it for a while. Thanks, and hope y'all have a good rest of your day.